Fascinating poll question.
Yes.
He said, ignore contracts. This is Brett Huff 22 on Twitter. Ignore contracts. Which player are you highest on? Mason Jones, Isaac Jones, Isaiah Crawford, or Boogie Ellis? I want to throw that question out to you. 916-909-1320, 916-909-1320. That's the Oak Grove Kia talk line. Whether you voted in Brett Huff's poll on Twitter or you didn't, we would love to hear your answer to this question. Mason Jones, Isaac Jones, Isaiah Crawford, Boogie Ellis. Which player are you highest on? We're eliminating contracts from this conversation. Where do you land on this?
I think it's interesting. First of all, you got 338 votes, and this went up yesterday at 10:24 before the Kings game, before Isaiah Crawford played major minutes. Boogie Ellis was coming off a couple of really high quality games. Isaac Jones had been given an opportunity. Mason Jones got an opportunity. I don't know where I'm at, like as far as which. I think, like, first of all, I really like Isaac Jones because the Kings need that guy, right? So if I'm listing who I'm kind of like in what order. I also like what Boogie Ellis has done as he doesn't care. He goes out there and he plays his game and he shoots, and that's spectacular. Isaiah Crawford comes in the game yesterday, and you're seeing like there's an outline of like a Lou Dort type player there. There's a strong, physical, like no nonsense player. Whether he can get, there or not, I have no idea. But I like all of these guys. And Mason Jones is like the energy guy. So I don't know that any of these guys, any of the four, should be in your rotation this year, maybe next year, maybe the year after. But at the same time, I think it's just interesting that the poll question goes out and gets so many people to vote, which is probably a reasonable sample size in Sacramento. And for Boogie Ellis to get 47% of the vote, Isaac Jones to get 27.5%, Isaiah Crawford to get 22.5%, and Mason Jones to get 3% of the vote. I just think it's an interesting look into where fans are at with this group of young players.
I think and again, this is what player you highest on, and I think it's important to put into context, like, not that one of these guys is going to be an all-star. It's just to me, it's about just over the next 3 or 4 years, who could maybe be a rotation guy.
Yeah.
For me, it's Isaiah Crawford. I really like what I've seen from Isaiah Crawford so far. And it might just be confirmation bias because when they signed him and I was looking into his college stuff, you go, man, good size, was a conference defensive player of the year. He shot it really well from three the last couple of years. This is the kind of player that they need to be bringing in. Good athlete, good defender, can knock down a three, can play multiple spots defensively. Feel really good about Isaiah Crawford. So maybe it's just confirmation bias, but I've liked what I've seen from him so far in the preseason. So I think that's where I land on this. But I get it with Isaac Jones. We've talked about him quite a bit. The Boogie Ellis thing is interesting to me.
Okay.
What's I understand the appeal, but I feel like when it comes to fit and what the Kings need, what he does is pretty far down the list.
No, I'm with you. Okay, so and I'd also point out, like, Boogie Ellis is coming off of 2 preseason games where he had hit like 6 of 11 from 3.
Yeah.
And he'd scored double figures twice in a row, and he stepped on the court and instantly, what I love about players like him, no hesitation, no fear. I'm going to get my shots up and I don't care. That's something that it's a skill in the NBA to have that mentality. And whatever it was that they were able to tell Boogie Ellis in Summer League when he was at the California Classic and then in Las Vegas, where they said, hey, look, the guy who fights, the guy who dives on the floor for the loose ball, the guy who gives us energy, who plays defense, that is what we're looking for. And he did that like tenfold. And then all of a sudden he gets a contract because of it. He earned the right to training camp by playing hard. And I like that the Kings reward players like this. But I think you're right, Kyle. I think Mason Jones is way further along than any of these guys, right? Mason Jones has been in the league for a couple of years. He went to Europe and played, came back. He's 26 years old. Like, he's worked on his body, he's worked on his game. The numbers he put up last year at G League level were off the charts. But this Kings team in particular, they need an Isaiah Crawford and they need an Isaac Jones.
Yes, big time.
Like, and it might not be like right now, but a year from now or midway through the season, if they have some injuries, they need players like this, guys who are gritty, guys who listen and play to their strengths. Again, we keep hearing it with Isaac Jones, that the guy, every single time there is a crash zone opportunity, he flies into the crash zone.
Love the crash zone.
Yeah, but if you have 9 opportunities to hit the crash zone and you hit the crash zone in 8 of those or all 9 of those, then it shows a willingness to be coachable and to do the job that the staff is asking. And that's something that he's done. And then I think with Crawford, he's, again, a little bit like a Keon Ellis type player. Maybe he can play the 3-4 as opposed to the 2. But he's sort of like that strong, physical 3-and-D guy that you need to create. You need to have a pipeline of these guys. So I'm with you. Like, I understand sort of your listing.
Sure.
And it's kind of like what I keep saying about players at the G League level. Mason Jones has an all-around game, and Boogie Ellis is a flat-out scorer.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's what the G League is about. The G League isn't about creating the next Malik Monk.
Yeah.
It's about creating the next Keon Ellis.
Yeah.
And Danny Green and Matisse Thybulle and PJ Tucker and like name that guy that is a 5th starter or a valuable bench guy who comes in and 3-and-D and does his job, and you can rely on him.
I want to articulate this properly because it wouldn't shock me if Mason Jones drives Mike Brown nuts.
Yeah.
There's very clearly a skilled basketball player there.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have been in the NBA if he wasn't, right? But it feels like there's 3 times a game, maybe more, where I shake my head or laugh or just like in disbelief. I have concerns about Mason Jones as a rotational NBA player for the Sacramento Kings.
Okay, so this is where I like, just to get back to what I've been talking about.
Yeah.
It's almost unfair because what Mason Jones is somebody who thinks he can step on the floor and do everything.
Sure.
Right? And so the problem is that as a guy who's fighting his way in through the G League and has been out of the league and all that stuff, you don't fight your way in by being, quality at a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
You fight your way in by doing 2 or 3 things really well.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like he's trying to do too much.
Yeah. And that's where it's like, again, you have mistake-prone players in the NBA, right? And like, we can talk about that for like Bobby Jackson was like one of those guys where they take bad shots, but it doesn't matter. He's hitting a lot of his bad shots. Like Bobby Jackson was like the extreme case of the no, yes guy, right? And it's okay to have those guys. But what you're not going to do is give a guy who's trying to make the squad that type of leeway. He's not going to get the leeway that Malik Monk gets.
Yes.
It's just not going to happen. And so he needs to go out there and find like the 2 or 3 things that he's really good at. And if every once in a while he makes a really nice pass and no one saw it coming, that's fine. But you do the 2 or 3 things that you're really good at, which you got to play defense, you got to shoot the 3 ball at a high level, and you got to go hit the crash zone. That's it. I don't need anything else from you. And then a lot of times what we see is he's out there and all of a sudden he's dribbled the ball 8 times. And you're like, okay, like the only person on this team that gets to dribble the ball 8 times, his name is De'Aaron Fox. That's it. No one else.
DeMar DeRozan, maybe.
Okay.
Depending on situation.
But even DeMar, typically it's because they feed him in the low post and he backs down and it's like 5 or 6 dribbles and going up and over the top of you.
Yep.
There is no running around and unrefined, like trying to find a hole in the defense type deal.
And that's why I think Mason Jones probably drives Mike Brown nuts. And again, I have no idea. Just watching him, it's this consistent, just what we were just saying. Like, it's this consistent, hey, that's too, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Why are you nope, don't do that.
It's too much.
It's
It's too little.
Just face palm.
Yeah.
Just constantly. And for a guy this isn't a rookie. There's a guy who's A, been in the NBA, and B, been in the Kings program for a couple of years now. And the fact that there's still those couple of plays a game, and maybe if Malik Monk had left, maybe they're looking at Mason Jones as a potential 6-man.
Yeah.
And maybe things are different. Maybe he's just not. Maybe he's being miscast right now. I don't know. But I do know when you talk about this list of players that we're discussing, Mason Jones, Isaac Jones, Isaiah Crawford, and Boogie Ellis, I think there's so much more upside with the younger guys who have not been around the league. Where, man, I would rather take a gamble on them than Mason Jones at this point.
Yeah,
for this team.
I mean, you might be right. You might be right with how the Kings are feeling. But then again, like, I think there is a lot of value. I mean, Mason is like a really, really good spirit. He's noisy,
electric locker room guy.
Yeah, he's noisy on the bench. He's also noisy on the court. As far as calling out defensive sets, and like you feel his presence. And I kind of, again, I look at it, and just, if we look at Mike Shanahan's running backs, right? What Mike Shanahan wants is a one-cut runner, right? He does not want a guy who gets in the hole and starts dancing. And that is not at all. And that's kind of what, like, Mason Jones feels like. He's not the one-cut runner. And you got a lot of guys for the Kings that are, like, they're understanding very quickly that their pathway to the league is to do X, Y, Z. And Mason still looks like he thinks his path to the league is to be a Malik Monk, or to be somebody that has an elevated role. And that's just, it's really tough to go in and steal one of those roles.
And it's probably, and that's the thing is so 3% of people in this poll that our guy Brett Huff put up on Twitter that we're talking about right now, 3% of people pick Mason Jones. And it's like, I get it.
Yeah.
We've seen flashes where you go, yo, hey, he can kind of score it.
Yeah.
Mason Jones is a little bit of a bucket.
Yep.
And it's so hard as an NBA player, if you've done that, to go, now I'm going to take a back seat. I know I've been a bucket in a game, but hey, today I'm going to go stand in the corner and I'm going to play hard on defense. I'm going to crash the offensive glass. Like, I get it, but you watch Isaac Jones, you watch Isaiah Crawford, and you watch Boogie Ellis, and to me, I see where they could have an impact down the road. More so than with Mason Jones.
Yeah.
To be clear, on the court, because you're right.
Yeah.
He does bring an energy that is different, and maybe that's something super valuable to the Kings, and maybe they love what he brings there, and it helps in peripheral ways.
I do think that, like, the conversation is really intriguing, and I would even say that, when we watch Boogie Ellis shoot threes in the game, they weren't bad shots. They were the right shot, right?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
It wasn't off the dribble. It wasn't. It was catch and shoot and do. And then that's the thing. Like, even though Mason Jones hit 2 threes, both, if I'm remembering correctly, on Friday night he hit 2, both off the dribble.
Yeah.
One of them was a bank shot.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there thinking, okay, when are you going to get that opportunity in an actual game?
Yes.
As opposed to watching Keon Ellis move around the outside, catch the ball, shoot the ball.
Yes.
I know exactly whether it's going in right now or not, it doesn't matter.
It's the flow of the offense.
I'm moving somewhere, I'm catching the ball, I'm shooting the ball. So, yeah, I mean, you need those guys who break up all of that, but
they've got it already.
They already have those guys.
Yes.
And that's what makes it tough. So,
yes.
Yeah, I hope that, like, I think Mason could still be, he's further along advanced as far as, like, basketball intelligence and physicality and things like that, because he's been in the league and had more experience. But
that's a great point. And I want to cap this with this. If they had to play a game right now with one of those guys, like, they're probably picking Mason Jones.
Yeah, it's very possible.
The guy that, like, if we need 20 minutes from somebody, he's probably the guy. because you for the most part know what you're going to get. But if we're talking over the next year, 2, 3 years, the next Keon Ellis, like you said, or the next Keon Ellis type impact, maybe not the exact same player. I'm picking one of those other 3 guys, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's the Gardner Minshew idea.
Yeah.
That you're going to bring him in because you need someone who can handle something right now. And maybe he can't, maybe he can win you a couple of games versus having somebody else who's, Spencer Rattler, who's sitting